Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the football experience. We've had a mini sabbatical, not exactly Pep-like with the 1 year, but a mini 2 week sabbatical. I don't know about
Well,
you.
it's
I don't know about you, but
Spalletti like after the news.
yeah. I don't know about you, Caleb, but I had my hands full a little bit. Had like me and my girlfriend decided to paint one of the walls at least
Ooh, home
because
reno.
yeah, but like, yeah, it's a process. Like we have to because you have to get rid of the old layers, like sand it down and everything, and like the actual painting itself, it was a half-hour job. Like
Yeah,
it was done in an instant, but
yeah, and that's
overall,
the fun part.
yeah, overall it was like a 3 day job, I think, or 4 days because we decided to do a second layer of paint. So I think it ended up being 4 days. And then I got
those,
sick as well, so I was
oh
sick.
no.
So yeah, it
Those who
was.
know me know that I'm not handy. You're talking to the wrong person for home reno.
You know what? Like a lot of people aren't. Like my friend actually sent me he sent me like a TikTok little thing and like some how you have those podcast preachers. But like what he said was right. Like this generation has essentially lost its ability to like do those little handyman tasks at home, like the little ones. And like, cause like now the notion is, oh, we'll just call a guy, Whereas I don't know about your parents, but like my parents, for instance, and their parents and whatever, like, and even actually culture here, the culture here is you do everything at home yourself. So like if you don't know how to do something, it's like, oh, I know a guy that can fix an electrical socket for you or like do some wiring. And it's like, okay, is he an electrician? No, he just does. He just knows how to do it. Like you don't have you do have actual people that do it for their job, but a lot of people like just know how to do it.
Yeah, and that's Nev's thought of the day
Yeah.
on cultural stereotypes between Australia
Well, not
and
really.
Croatia. No, it
It,
doesn't
it,
matter. It doesn't matter, man. I'm not going to touch on because, like, the thing is, we're going to get on a tangent that has nothing to do with football. I don't see us looping this one back to all right, all
maybe
right.
maybe
No,
somehow.
quickly, we're gonna get into this some other time. But just gonna. You got your thought. Here's my thought.
Go
I,
on,
I was
go on.
thinking about the playoff final with the championship, and it was
Uh huh.
Coventry Luton, right?
Yep.
Okay, and admittedly, I didn't watch one championship game this season, but I knew Luton had been struggling in League Two not long ago, and I knew Coventry had those administrative problems. And I was shocked to see that was the playoff final. I'm like, Coventry against Luton, crazy. And obviously, it wasn't a surprise to hear that they have two of the lowest wage budgets in the championship. And I also am looking at what is presently going on in the NBA with the Miami Heat and the big tale about how many undrafted players and they're an 8 seed and how did they get to the NBA finals. And to relay back, I think in football terms, I think this might be the start of what I keep thinking will be the next way we go in terms of football trend, where we're relying on, in the case of like Miami, and I imagine for Coventry and Luton, these are teams who I imagine were relying on players who were they had to live outside of the bubble of football for a little bit, and they had to
Mm.
exist outside of that to get themselves into that chance. And it just feels like their intangibles are becoming more and more tangible if this continues a trend where you've got teams who, I don't know, have this resilience, have this sort of characteristic that living outside of the bubble gave them, that can overcome now super talented teams. You look at Miami; they had to overcome Milwaukee, who were the favorites, and Boston, who were second favorites probably the whole year. So I'm just wondering, like, and I don't know if Miami will win the whole thing. Ultimately, I think you need some level of talent. When you can blend the two, you get your best teams. But it's just we're just maybe seeing that talent is clearly not enough now, and it can be exposed by these characteristics. And I think, given the fact that these characteristics, I think nearly anyone can achieve. Honestly, football is a rare game where anyone can play it and anyone can be good at it of any not shape the size. You need some athleticism at the top level, but Messi could not make it in the NBA. Like, you have to be a certain stature to play there and dominate there. So given that I think nearly anyone could do these things, maybe we're just shifting away. Maybe people will cotton on that at the lower levels, when you're producing players, it's important that they live outside of the bubble, and it's important that they get these life skills that they then translate onto the pitch. And I don't know, maybe that's the way we're going. But I think that sort of links in a little bit to the society point. I don't think it's a perfect correlation, but that's my thought on football and where it might be going.
Well, if just to touch on that, if you go, I think around the 70s when you started getting more money and you started to get more professionals, so like going full-time football. Before that, a lot of players would play football on the weekends, and then, they'd have a, Monday to Friday job, whatever that may be. And I think in League One you still have that. And I think I don't think in Championship you get that, really. But League One and below, you have that where they're not full professionals; they're like semi-professional. So it's in fact, there's Wrexham were a professional club. So if you go they
find
can
out
afford to be a
national,
professional club.
Yeah, I know, but they're not the first National League club that have become professional or been professional in the National League. I think you start to get more money in, and I think this is the point. You're starting to get more money in where you're getting professional clubs even in the National League now, and all of the League 2 and up is fully professional. All of those clubs, or they're at least deemed professional. But you're getting so much money, and therein lies the point for me. I would love. I don't know if it can ever happen, but I would love football to be drained of so much of this money that keeps coming into it.
It's hard.
I just think it'd bring back the purity of. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I just think it'd bring back some of the purity of what the game I think should be. But at the same time, we're getting these dramatic events. We're getting these grand stages. So I don't know. It's pros and cons, really.
Well, like we worked for Woolworths supermarket chain. You remember that,
Alright, I'm interested.
The in terms of like advertising and whatnot. You remember Coca-Cola? Like, that was always middle shelf, so that was always eye level. So I imagine that these, I don't know who runs it, whether it's the EPL or the actual team itself, like the home team. But you know how you have the main pitch camera. Like, imagine how much that board costs that's directly on the halfway line. Like, how much of that, they're just, do you reckon at the end of the season or whatever, or whenever the contract runs out, whether it's after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, do you reckon they're just like, okay, we have the center advertising board up for sale, who wants it? And obviously you're going to get like all these companies just going, 50 million, 60 million, 70. So they just keep going up and up and up and up because they realize how many people watch football. So it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's football itself that's like driving these massive, this massive income. It's the advertisers that are driving the massive income because they're competing against each other for those eye level spots.
Yeah, it's definitely a chicken and egg thing. Like, which one came first, like football's popularity or...
Well, football was popular even way back when. Like, it's really the advertisers that have, like, now that it's become more accessible, like someone in...
But football has never said no to that money. If there's money coming in, we're not going to say no.
Like, but like but now, like, someone in Japan... Do you reckon someone in Japan could have watched the English League Division 1, what it was called, back in the 70s? I doubt. Maybe even only like the Emperor or the King or whatever. Like those rich people. But like now, someone on 30,000 a year can watch the EPL, no problem.
Yeah, this podcast is only made possible by those technological advancements that allows me to watch like 5 different leagues.
There you go.
Exactly. So, but anyway, I think I'm thinking to segue this back to on the field after our little 10-minute tangent. I think we did a good tangent to start this pod. But the eye level thing that happened over the last 2 weeks, because I guess
That was
our
a
little
lot.
sabbatical. There's been a lot of non eye level stuff that we're going to touch on because it wasn't on the pitch. But my God, the Bundesliga final day. Oh, what a stupid day! I think stupid is the perfect word for it. I think because I don't think really good words deserve to be used on either of these teams. Maybe. All right. Here's what I think should have happened with the Bundesliga before we go into the minutia of what actually happened. But given how events played out, my idea was Jamal Musiala gets like a little sort of shield, the Bundesliga trophy. He gets to lift that up. No other Bayern players get that. And Bayern do not receive the trophy because neither of those teams deserved acknowledgement for having a good season. They were 71 points to win it and Dortmund to choke the way they did.
That was amazing.
Man, choke is harsh.
Hey,
Choke is one of the harshest things you could say to a team.
Was that against the final one? Was that against Mainz?
Yeah, Mainz.
You know what? I don't think we didn't pod before, but I was thinking in the back of my head, and I know it's easy to say in hindsight, but I was thinking, wouldn't it be interesting that Mainz, a club that's very, it's had its like connections with Dortmund, like. Klopp went from Mainz to Dortmund. Tuchel went from Mainz to Dortmund. I think one other manager might have gone from Mainz to Dortmund as well. I'm not sure. But now, like, Tuchel's at Bayern as well. So there's a lot of these interconnections between... And Mainz are the one... But you'd imagine there's a friendly... Or maybe there's not a friendly connection between Mainz and Dortmund because, like, maybe Mainz consider that they stole those managers. I don't know. But... It's just interesting.
No, it's not. It wasn't so friendly on that Saturday.
But it's
that
just
fateful Saturday.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's Mainz who spoil the party for Dortmund.
Man, that's one of the interesting things. There's so many interesting things about what happened. But this one has two sides to the coin. So which side of the coin should we start on?
Whichever one you like. Whichever one you like.
Oh. All right, we got to go with Dortmund because that kicked off early. Man, they started. I don't know. They didn't start well. They never played well. They were never settled in the game at any point. It was deer in the headlights. They played this crazy brash attacking way that they've been playing, but I think ultimately players' characteristics showed on the day. And the big one who showed for me was Emre Can. I can't have a midfield. You know what Dortmund looked like? They looked like Liverpool pre-Alisson and Van Dijk and Fabinho. They looked like that team because they had 3 players who were holding, and that was it. And I'd take Henderson back then over Can any day. But then the other 7 players would all push forward. And that's what Dortmund have been doing, and that's how they've played. And today, the attackers didn't link up quite right. Adeyemi did his hammy, I think, as well. And the whole game just had this... I mean, well, I'm burying the lead in terms of what happened because if 2-0 wasn't bad enough, and I think Emre Can had reason to be at fault for maybe both the goals. Matt Hummels as well. Shouldn't be playing in these games. It should be playing as one of a 3 when you're asked to cover that much space. I'm also burying the league because Jude Bellingham was injured, which meant he couldn't play any part of the game as well. But then Mainz, they go that goal up from the set piece. Then they go 2-0 up because Dortmund are all over the place. And it just turned into it was a nightmare atmosphere. It was one of those surreal, like, oh my God, we're throwing this away. Everyone's so expected and Mainz are just like, and then I think the moment where they knew was the Haller penalty. And apparently Chan was meant to take that penalty as well. So maybe he would have rectified some of the mistakes if he was allowed to take it. But to make it 1-1, I know Dortmund will have qualms. I think maybe the Guerrero one probably was a penalty, but I thought the first Guerrero one, the one that Haller missed, was a bit soft. So I can understand why the ref's like, I don't want to give a second penalty in 5 minutes for something that looks a little bit soft, but the second one might have been more of a penalty than the first one. I know that the argument about the Bochum penalty a couple of weeks ago for Dortmund as well is going to come up again. I don't think that was a penalty, but I'm going to be on an island for that. So, I don't know. I know you saw the highlights of this game, and obviously they came back into the game. They make it 2-2, but well, I mean, there was hope for a little bit because the flip side of the coin, Bayern did make it very easy for themselves. But I think we'll stay on Dortmund, and I just think overall, man, it was a horror show. I'm not gonna say I feel good about what happened, but I feel at ease with what happened because after I made that declaration after the Bayern Dortmund game all those months ago, when I declared that Dortmund were absolutely not going to win the title, I was sweating it out a bit on that last day. But then the fraud came out, and they showed us. They showed us, I think, who they really are, and that they weren't ready to win this title. But the team who won it aren't much more deserving than them. But man, yeah, it was adequate that it came down to goal difference, and they both finished on 71 points.
I was actually going to be a little bit happy that, because Bayern lost the second last week, didn't they?
Yeah, to Leipzig.
Yeah, they did. And I was like, and then Dortmund won, and I was like, you know what? So be it. I'm happy. Considering everything that happened around Nagelsmann and Tuchel and everything, I was like,
Yeah,
I hopped on the Dortmund train.
yeah. Don't blame you.
Had it. I've always look. I've always, as a kid, like when I played FIFA or whatever, I've always supported Bayern. I get, but then again, like Dortmund has a bit of a soft spot in my heart as well. And I know that they've been previous rivals and now they're rivals again. But yeah, I was hoping that Dortmund take this one out, just because of everything that happened with Nagelsmann. Because generally Bayern are a very well-run club, and they're very. Remember how years ago people used to say about Barcelona, like that they have their morals in the right place and all this crap.
Years ago.
That
seems like a distant memory now.
But that's generally what you hear about Bayern, especially after this whole Super League stuff, because Bayern rejected the Super League and all that. And then I don't know, like this whole Tuchel Nagelsmann thing just left a sour taste in my mouth.
No, what about the cherry on top? Did you hear what they did to Khan and Sally Hamilton?
Yeah, they fired him.
They didn't let him into the party. Oh my God. Come on, Bayern Munich. No, I totally get your dilemma. I know for like the morality of it, you should be going for Dortmund. I just couldn't stand the fact that their football would get rewarded because it wasn't very good. But Bayern's wasn't that much better, and we've already started touching on Bayern, and I think we need to go there because I don't know. I think this whole last day, I couldn't have scripted it more perfectly for what I thought should have happened all the time. It was like a super condensed version of what I thought of all of these teams and all of these players involved, because it was Dortmund just showing that they were too young, they were too naive, the manager included, to live up to this moment to finally take down Bayern. But it also showed how much of a shit show Bayern are, of course, because they go 1-0 up. Kingsley Coman scores unbelievable goal in that game, and they're 1-0 up, and then foot comes off the gas. I have no idea why Musiala wasn't even starting this game in your biggest game of the season. How can you not start the player that everything should be built around in the offensive sense? I can't believe it. Why is Tuchel not prioritizing this guy? And that is that moment where he scores the goal after Kohler equalized. And let's not forget, when Kohler equalized, Bayern were not winning the title under any circumstances. They needed to win. So it makes it all the more perplexing that they went 1-0 up and they never pushed on, and they never looked to go anywhere from there. And then Kohler actually, well, you saw the XGs from both games. I think the XGs from both games, Dortmund won like 4-2, and Bayern like lost 4-2 in their game on XG. So therein lies Bayern's problems of not dominating games, leaving it up to chance, and they make these stupid mistakes, which they always inevitably do because they don't really have very good defenders. They don't have a great goalkeeper. They have good, but they're not great. They're not Bayern standard, and that's what equals 71 points at the end of the day. But the guy who pops up and saves everything for Bayern, everything. They were going to finish this season trophyless. Bayern Munich, trophyless. And the guy who saves everything is Jamal Musiala, because he is by far and away the best player at Bayern. I'll give honourable mentions to Joshua Kimmich and Kingsley Coman, but I don't think anyone else from that Bayern team deserves a mention in how they won this league title. Honestly, I really don't think that they deserve it. I know some numbers will be good. I know Sane had his good patches. Gnabry got a few important goals here and there. But honestly, for the amount of talent that Leroy Sane has, he's got to be a lot more productive and a lot better. I mean, he misses a 1-on-1 just before Musiala scores as well. And you know why else I loved it for Musiala? Because I think back to the World Cup and how many times he hit the post in that damn tournament. He was Germany's only good player. He was killing it. He was tearing it up individually, and he just couldn't find that breakthrough. And then the biggest moment, the last minute, penultimate minute of the game, to score a goal like that. What a goal as well to win it. I rate this guy so highly. I think he is the future for Bayern Munich, and I think, like I said, in the offensive sense, going forward in the attack, everything has to be built around this guy. Well, maybe whoever they get in the summer as well.
Yeah, but man, what a way to end it though.
What a day.
Anyway, Caleb, are we satisfied with the Bundesliga or?
Well, actually,
overall?
there's one last.
Oh, hang on, but the top four as well. The top four finished with Freiburg not getting in.
Of course.
And Leipzig had a good run. Did they win the last 5? Yeah, they won their last 5 matches.
You've hit the nail on the head, because I was going to say I want one final point on this title race, and look, the Pokal that they won over Eintracht on the weekend with Christopher and Kuku getting a great sign off for Leipzig. And honestly, this game for me, the Pokal, was a sort of game where I was only watching 2 players ever. I was only watching Christopher and Kuku and against Randall Koulibaly in this game. And I thought whoever came out on top, or whoever could have an influence in this game, would be the player who, I'm not going to say they definitely would get in one of my teams of the season, but they'd have the better chance over the other player of getting into the team of the season, because Christopher Nkunku's been injured for most of the season. I think he finished as Bundesliga's top scorer again. And he's in those figures for assists, and in the cup final to win it for Leipzig, he pops up with a goal and an assist. And Koulibaly had his chances, but he couldn't quite do it. But I love both those players; they're excellent. Chelsea should be very excited because they're getting a very good player. And in this game, he looked like he was playing almost as an out-and-out number 9. Like, he didn't play it like a number 9 because of his qualities, but his positioning definitely was a number 9. He was making runs in behind. He looked very strong as well. So I'm not ruling out him being a number 9 for Chelsea. Maybe making. I'm definitely not ruling him out for making the difference, because he is an excellent player. But yeah, that will paper over the cracks, or not paper over, but it will be like a Band-Aid, sort of a screen in front of what I think Leipzig should be declared losers for this season. Because I think it's not entirely their fault, but because of injuries, I think Lima was injured in the middle of the season. Obviously, in Kuku, Dani Olmo only just came back.
Yeah.
So we're only now watching the true Leipzig. But I thought this all season, I thought the true Leipzig was a team that could contend for the title. And seeing how shit Dortmund and Bayern were ahead of them, I think if they had those players fit for the whole season, and if they weathered the storm of the middle of it where they didn't have those players fit, which I think falls on Marco Rose to do better. And to be fair, Marco Rose has turned it around in this end part of the season, and they have finished so strong. I don't know what that means going forward, because they're losing Nkunku, they're losing Lima. They're 2 of their 3 most important players, I think. They've still got some good players, but those guys are so important to that team, and we'll see what happens with Guardiola as well. But yeah, I would actually declare them losers because I think they could have easily won this title. I think this title was there for them as well, given the talent that team has.
But I think
they won a cup, which is pretty great.
I think we touched on a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Man City and Arsenal. Like you need a little bit of luck in terms of not having your players injured, and like we can go to the Liverpool season.
Dortmund had injuries. I think Bayern were maybe the most healthy out of everyone.
Well, Mane got injured early on.
Yeah, Mane, of course, and that went so
and like
south,
and the thing is that like that front three or that front four combination, depending on who came in, like Gnabry, Coman, like what it looked terrifying at the start. Like they actually kicked off very, very well. And
remember at the start of the season the fanfare that Sadio Mane was coming to? He was the second place in the Ballon d'Or from the season before. This guy was winning African Cups. He was in Champions League finals. He was going for quadruples the season before. It's like, look, we've got a marquee player in Sadio Mane. How quickly that turned. Look at it now.
But anyway, remember also we were saying, because he started off amazingly, and we were saying, like, we were asking the question, did Liverpool keep the wrong... Yeah, did Liverpool keep the right player? It looks like you did, because firstly Mane got injured, and he was injured for like probably 5 months, 6 months, if you include the 1 month period of the World Cup. And yeah, Salah ended up getting 20 goals. Did he get 20 goals in the league?
Yeah, I think 19 in the end.
So he pretty much did what he usually does, 19 to
he did.
20,
I know.
25 goals.
It didn't look as effective as it normally does.
Yeah, it didn't look that effective, like you said. But what I was touching on before, like with the whole luck point, like I'm not putting it down to luck. Liverpool winning that the league was 3 years ago now. But like City, remember City, they had a couple of injuries, and then that totally derailed them, so they couldn't even challenge you guys. And then the following season, you guys got an injury to Alisson, like pretty much one of your three most important players, and that completely derailed.
Van Dijk, bro. It was Alisson, but it was Van Dijk was the big one.
Did Van Dijk get
season
injured?
After?
Well, but the thing is, like, you had injuries to like those important players, and then like that completely derailed your season.
Of course.
It was Van Dijk. It wasn't Alisson, but
Alisson was in and out of that team that season as well.
But yeah, like Van Dijk, he probably was your most important player. Like,
exactly.
And that completely derailed your season, so that you couldn't even challenge for the title. And yeah, you need a little bit of luck with like injuries, and now with VAR and all this crap. So yeah, it's unfortunately Leipzig didn't have their little bit of luck, because they had quite a few very important players, like their best players, injured.
Yeah.
But also on top of that, they were injured like around the same time as well. So it's not like, Nkunku's injured, but we still got Dani Olmo and Lima and all this stuff. It's like, Nkunku's missing, Dani Olmo's missing, Lima's missing. It's like all of them missing at the same time. So that makes it even worse. That compounds it.
No, of course. And that's why I absolve them of that part of the blame, but I still think those months after the World Cup, they just didn't play well, and I thought it was there for them to generate some momentum, or at least stay in the title race. And they fell off so badly. But like I said, Dortmund also had their injuries, and like I said, I think maybe if you want to look at it, maybe that's what ultimately won Bayern this title. The fact that it was only really Sadio Mane. I mean, that's potentially a big loss, but we never saw how he performed over any prolonged period of time at Bayern. So, but anyway, what a crazy final day we had, and obviously well done to Union Berlin for finishing in that top four. I'm not too pleased about Leverkusen's finish to the season. They have looked soft yet again, and they lost terribly against Bochum, but it didn't matter because Wolfsburg contrived to lose their game and miss out on European qualification. So somehow Leverkusen stayed in. But Yeah, anyway, the Bundesliga final day was probably the most exciting day of any of the leagues in Europe. Well, it definitely was. In fact, I didn't watch anything from the Premier League or Serie A or definitely not La Liga. La Liga's been dead for weeks now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Bundesliga, you did it. You gave us the entertainment. They generally do, to be fair to the Bundesliga and the German football. But while we were talking about the Pokal, I guess we should touch on the other domestic cup from England, which saw Man City 2/3 of the way there. Do you watch this game?
I had it on in the background because I was doing
I'm painting.
the painting. Yeah, so I watched like the goals and stuff, but like so I didn't get to watch the full game. But it sounded like it was a very exciting game.
How's the Gundogan goal? The first one.
The second one was a shinny.
Scarf.
Yeah,
It's a scarf.
but the first one,
The first. What was it? 14, 15 seconds, whatever it was.
something like that.
My
Yeah.
goodness. This guy, Gundogan, I can't believe he is so clutch. He always pops. He's been popping up for City in these like dramatic. Remember the last day of last season? Pops up with the goal that wins the title from them. It's just. He just had the 2 goals at Everton. He's hit a different vein of form recently. My God.
You know what though? Like I think Pep generally gets this out of players that are leaving. I think he got like company pretty much got his best season before he left. I think David De Silva got one of his best seasons just before he left as well. So
And on the David Silva point, Gundogan's out there looking like David Silva reincarnate. The position he's playing as well.
yeah, he's been like not, but like he's risen along with the rest of the team though in the last 3 months.
No doubt.
But I guess he's been a little bit. Yeah, they've had a couple of standout performances because like Grealish as well has been amazing.
Man, you could do
Yeah.
the whole team.
Yeah, pretty much.
You could. Like John Stones has been so good. I can't solve the John Stones problem. Why? I can't solve it myself. I can't figure out where teams are gonna. Like he just. I don't know. Is the solution just to let him have the ball and let him make decisions? Maybe his passing range is a little bit limited. Is that the move? And then you just say, all right, you have the ball, John Stones.
Why would you want to give any player time on the ball?
Because if you don't give him time on the ball, then someone has to close him down and someone else is getting time on the ball. And I don't want the guy getting time on the ball to be Kevin De Bruyne or Ilkay Gundogan or Jack Grealish or Bernardo Silva. I don't want any of those guys having any part of having the ball, please. But John Stones, maybe. But then, like, if you're going man to man, you'll get disorganized by City. They'll know how to move you around properly, and John Stones is still good enough to pick out something eventually if you give him too much time and space. So, man, that conundrum they've put in the midfield, the conundrum that they've also solved at the back, because he's so right in doing this, putting Kyle Walker as the third centre back and letting John Stones go in, because when they push high, no one can beat Kyle Walker in a race. If they're defending at the halfway line, no one's getting in behind him. Because Rashford tried, Vinny's tried. Vinny, like I said, when you get him pushed closer to goal and it's more of a 1v1 jinking in and out, you've got a chance. But in a race to try and get him behind, you got no chance. And with that conundrum that they give, yeah, well, man, even that race, that was an epic at the World Cup. That 1 foot race that they had.
But Mbappe had
Walker
him.
still, yeah, but Walker was still there, and he kind of nudged him enough to put him off balance, you know. So like, even if you do get there, you've had to work so hard. That'll be interesting to see when he loses maybe just a yard of pace, what happens, because he's an absolute defensive weapon. And you can't solve it because with the conundrum they give you with Stones in midfield, they inherently push you back. And then they give you the conundrum, how the hell do we counterattack on them if they got Kyle Walker there? I mean, I am somewhat amazed at times that Carlo Ancelotti and now Eric Ten Hag didn't just say to their best players in Vinny and Rashford, go and play on the other side, go and play on the right-hand side. Have no part of playing against Kyle Walker. We'll put more of a technician on that side, so he has to maybe get drawn out a little bit more, and then on the other side we'll go up against a Kanji or Ake or whoever they're playing there. So I was, particularly in the Madrid case, I was amazed that Carlo never tried putting Vinny on the right hand side and see what happened. But Man City, it's up to Inter. They're the only ones
Just on that, it
who are
might
left
be a
to
little
see.
bit of an
Yeah.
ego thing, maybe especially with Vinny. Like, whereas he's like, mate, I'm like one of the three best wingers, or like one of the two best wingers, the left wingers in the world, like me and Mbappe. Why? I want to show that I can beat this guy, and this guy's like 10 years older than me almost. So I especially want to show that I can beat this guy.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That's a really good point. Vinny. That's one of the things I love about Vinny, but
But then at the same time,
yeah,
you need to listen to your manager. So if the manager tells you to go play on the right hand side, you go play on the right hand side. And I don't think
yeah, and
anyone's going to be
I think if
disobeying.
Carlo, yeah, I think if Carlo tells Vinny to do that, he does that.
Yeah.
To be fair, so. But yeah, they're 2/3 of the way. Oddly enough, I think their two cup finals, Manchester City were or are were slash are because they played one, but two of maybe the worst opponents that they could have played. Because let's not forget what Manchester United did to Man City at Old Trafford. I know somewhat fortuitously with that offside goal with the Bruno Fernandes, but um, they tactically got it right on that day, and that was Manchester City playing tactically in this way, but not playing at this level, of course. And in this game, it showed that they've got players who are just hitting crazy form. And yeah, like I said, it's up to Inter, and again, that's a matchup I'm going to be curious to see. But they passed this test against Manchester United. I would say fairly comfortably. It was a match, but it was a fairly comfortable match for Manchester City.
It seemed like that, listening to the commentary. Like, it seemed like they were in control, but United still gave them. They asked enough questions to possibly take the match into extra time.
Yeah. If something goes right, you get a piece of luck. Then you're right there.
Well,
It's only 2-1.
they had that penalty. I think
Yeah, they got a piece of luck with the penalty. I was going to say.
it's a weird one for me because, like, you know,
It's a very divisive issue, isn't it?
yeah,
this
because
penalty?
the whole thing is like Grealish is like there's a lot of, I guess, things to look at with that, like, is because he was jumping, so obviously when you're jumping you're sort of using your arms to, like, you know, for momentum and all that stuff, so, like, you know, your arms coming up and down and whatever. So I think the rule is, like, is the arm in a natural body position or whatever? Is it going through that natural motion? Because, like,
Bro, I'm going to stop you there and just say I don't care.
yeah, it's
Man City did enough to still win, thankfully,
yeah,
because otherwise it'd
exactly.
be a bigger talking point. But yeah, I'm like, man, some of these decisions now, it's just like, I can't talk about them anymore. If I talk, I will be in trouble. Oh, man. But yeah, anyway, they're 2/3 of the way. Do you want to, we'll pocket Manchester City? And do you want to do some juicy topics that haven't happened on the pitch? Actually, no, wait, before we do that, just two quick shout outs. Lens finished 1 point behind PSG in Liga. And, like, I know you don't get any trophies for finishing second, whatever, but to finish on 84 points for the season, only lose 4 games, have the best defensive record in Liga. I think it's beyond doubt, and Jules Oron has been on this on various podcasts that he does, that Lens are without doubt the best team in Ligue 1 this season. They've been consistent. They've got the least losses in the league, best defensive record, and they play energetic. Like, I wouldn't say attacking, but they play balanced football. They play between going attacking and defensive. They have some absolute standout performers. I think Seiko Fofana will be in with a huge shout of getting into one of my teams of the season. The way they finished the season was so strong. Man, they're just a really good team, and they were. It's a shame that they didn't win the title. They 100% deserve to win the title. I know that's hard to say because you play a 38-game season, and PSG still finished on top. And to be fair, PSG were quite good before the World Cup, but since the World Cup, they've been a shit show. They're just starting to get over that, thankfully, and that's one of the juicy topics that we'll hit off the pitch, but we'll do that in a little bit. And the other shout out, just a quick one. I'm a little bit disappointed with Atletico Madrid and the way they finished. They're a little bit more inconsistent towards the end of the season. They had a golden chance of toppling Real Madrid for second spot on the weekend, and they let it slip in the last minute against Villarreal to finish third. Not a big deal, but Antoine Griezmann is still awesome, so that's good. I still like my stock, but I just wish that if they just showed a little bit more consistency, they would have finished second, deservedly so. But yeah, the Lons one I had to shout out. But anyway, onto the off-field sort of topics. Which one do you want to start on?
And before, since you're going a little bit sidetracked, did you?
Oh, yeah,
and we since we didn't cover like the last day of the Premier League and whatnot. You know what? Did you see the results for Man City put in against both Brighton and Brentford? Just the results, not the performances.
Wasn't it like 1-1 against Brighton?
I think it was
0-0.
Yeah, or 0-0 or 1-1, and then they lost to Brentford. And remember how I was saying those two are
Brentford
potential
did double as well.
Yeah, I was saying those are the potential banana skins for Man City, and had Arsenal, and I know this is all ifs, whats, buts, and all this stuff, but like had Arsenal won those two games against Brighton and Nottingham Forest, they would have won the league because the other two teams
we can't say that they could have won the league, but
they could have won the league, but points wise,
that's why
yeah,
it's so disappointing.
but it's probably even more disappointing now seeing the results. But the thing is, maybe those results wouldn't have happened if you had Arsenal breathing down their necks, because Man City wouldn't have rested players and whatnot. So it's the whole what's ifs and buts and whatnot. So, but like it ended up happening like what I was predicting, that those two matches, I don't think that they're going to pick up all 3 points in those two matches, and especially with Brentford, I was expecting that Brentford could pull off a win. But
yeah, and they did.
It is what it is.
Arsenal let go of the rope a bit early, and they went there to maybe put some pressure on.
Yeah, but. And then I know, like, the last... They beat Wolves 5-0 at home. But, like, I know that, that's a combination of Wolves, going on holiday too early because they finished 13th and they weren't going to get into Europe. They weren't going to get relegated and so on. And it's also a combination of Arsenal having no pressure on themselves. But, like, you see the difference between a team that is playing under pressure and a team that... like from a couple of weeks ago, to a team that's playing with just free flowing, doesn't they're not scared to play with, and it seemed like they were playing that way while the title race was still on those last couple of weeks.
Well, we'll see what happens with Arsenal going forward.
Yes, we shall see.
That'll be one of the interesting ones. But yeah, where do you want to start with the off the pitch stuff that we've seen go down so far?
Do you want to start with a bit of a manager merry-go-round, or not really merry-go-round?
Yeah, all right. Which one do you want to start with? Who's your manager of choice?
Let's start with our boy Ange.
Ange, say no to Ange. I love the Tottenham fans and their petition. I think he'll win him over pretty quick.
I think he will.
Celtic.
Yeah, because when he first came into Celtic, they were saying like, who the hell is this guy and whatnot. He sort of came in with that Arsene Wenger sort of stigma because he's coming from Japan. He's a bit of a nobody, and yeah, he won them over very quick. Here's a bit of a question though. Had Gerrard have stuck with Rangers, do you still think that Ange would have won the league? He won the double, didn't he?
We'll never know.
Yeah,
we'll never know because now Steven Gerrard is the worst manager in the world. So.
Yeah, look, I didn't watch any Celtic, but by all accounts, from what I've heard, fans
they're an exciting team.
Yeah, they were
a good team.
They were a very exciting team and everything. Very
Australia were a good team to watch in the 2014 World Cup as well. To be fair.
Yeah,
I was more skeptical of Ange back in the day. I'll admit I was more skeptical of Ange back in the day, but I've come around on him. I think he's a very good manager. It's first Australian to manage in the Premier League.
I believe
at a club like Tottenham.
Yeah,
the club like Tottenham, which is crazy. At the age of 58, it is a good story. It's a great story. So, but ultimately Tottenham, I wouldn't say have bigger problems. It's great that they finally found a manager. I think they found a promising manager. I will still say we have seen, to your Gerrard point and the Brendan Rodgers point, we've seen those managers go into jobs in the Premier League at fairly promising clubs, Aston Villa and Leicester. Brendan Rodgers did a very good job for a few seasons there. So maybe Ange can have that effect. Steven Gerrard was good for his first half season, and then it soured with Aston Villa after that, it seemed. So there is a cautionary tale there. The step up is it is a step up, not in terms of stature of the club, because Ange would have already had to deal with that at Celtic. That's a massive club. But in terms of the level of competition around, so I think when I say Tottenham have bigger fish to fry, I say that because they're losing Hugo Lloris. So how much of a loss is that?
I don't think that's a loss.
I don't know. Yeah, on recent performances, it's an opportunity more than a loss, really. An opportunity to get a good goalkeeper in, but they need a centre back. They need a foundation, and I'm hoping Ange sees that very quickly and that he recognises. I know he wants to play that exciting football, and no doubt he'll start instilling that, but I just hope that's not where he starts. And I'm sure he won't start. I'm sure he'll start on more of that foundation of being, like I said with my theory at the start, more resilient, because Tottenham are a soft touch. And if they get punched, they have a glass jaw, and he needs to sort that out. So that's the bigger fish to fry. Is he the man to do it? Potentially, but there's going to need to be reinforcements. There's going to need to be wise investment. And, wow, the Harry Kane question still lingers, and that's a huge one.
That is a big one. And I imagine... that's the problem, though, like with Ange coming in, like... He's not exactly this big name manager where, you know, like for instance, if Pep came into Tottenham, Harry Kane would be like, yeah, I'm signing a new deal. Like, I don't care whether he's building a project. I want to play for this guy. Klopp as well, he'd probably want to play for. Like, you know, there's certain managers that he'd be like, yeah, I'll stay because I want to play for these guys. I'm not sure Ange is necessarily that type of manager.
I just hope in Harry Kane's case, unlike the last time we were at this crossroads and he sat out and sort of refused to train when he wanted to go to City, I hope he at least gives Ange the respect and a chance to see what training's like if he hasn't made his mind up. Who knows? Maybe Harry Kane's already made his mind up.
The problem, that's it. The thing is now there's an opportunity for him at, and we'll get onto it, and probably a good transition. There's an opportunity for him at Real Madrid now.
Of course, that was huge news. So we'll leave the manager merry-go-round.
We'll come back to it. This will be like transfer talk, exactly, transfer window talk.
No, honestly, if I asked the question to myself, where do you want to start? I would have started with the Karim Benzema. Oh man, I'm a little bit disappointed. I think he was still one of the. Look, I'm not, because he's never gonna accomplish anything better than what he did on that Champions League run last season. Like he honestly, I just don't think he can top that. So if he wants to leave with that still fresh in the mind, if he wants to leave as the reigning Ballon d'Or holder, like, props to him. He deserves it. He's played third fiddle for his career. He's played second fiddle, and now he's got to be the main man, and he's excelled in all of those roles. What an unbelievable player, and one that we've really started to appreciate in these recent seasons where he has been the main man. The array of talent, just such a good player to watch, man. Honestly, that's why I'm disappointed, because I wanted to keep watching Karim Benzema in Champions League games, because I know the age thing has come into it in terms of injury, and that's undeniable, because it seems like it's been niggly injuries, and that's always a worry when you're up at that 34-year-old sort of range. But when he's on the pitch, man, that month, what was it, April? He scored 3 hat-tricks in April. He's just still an unbelievable player when he's on the pitch. I think some of the touches, the hold-up play, the intelligence, I still think he's reasonably physical as well. He can get around, so I'm disappointed for that reason. But like I said, props to him. If he wants to leave on top, he deserves that right. And I'm going to miss watching him on the pitch, because the way he linked up with Vinny as well was was something special, and I guess that leads into your sort of Kane point, because when I think Karim Benzema, my mind has a network straight to Harry Kane. I think they're such similar strikers in that way. I think they're as good as each other in little subtle different ways, but they're so unbelievable, each of them. So if you're going to replace one with the other, you're just getting a slightly younger version of Karim Benzema for me, in terms of you've got the leadership ready-made. He's been captain
I was
of
going to touch
England.
on that.
He's been captain of Tottenham when Lloris isn't there. So
Captain of
yeah,
England.
man, it's a transfer fee.
No, captain of England as well.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that one makes sense. But there's man, we could have a striker merry-go-round, because there's a guy in Paris who is he certain about the direction of PSG? Does he like the direction of PSG? He did give himself little safety nets in his contract that he could, or levers, I guess he could pull.
Yeah.
So Real Madrid have always wanted him. I don't think they'll go this soon, because I think they feel a little bit humiliated at what Mbappe sort of did to him last summer. But yeah, I think.
You know what? Just on the Harry Kane point though, and we know the stigma around Daniel Levy always getting the best possible deal and the most amount of money out of deals and whatnot. If Man United come at you with 100 mil, yes, they're a direct competitor for the top four. But do you offload to Man United for 100 mil, or do you offload to Real Madrid for 70? Because this is Harry Kane's last year. So he either leaves this year or he leaves next year for free.
That could be up to Harry Kane as much as anything. Does he want to stay in England, or does he want to go abroad?
Is he 60 or 50 goals away from Shearer's record? I think he's like 50 goals.
Yeah, it's 50 odd, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't factor in. Because for me, personally, if he is going to leave, I hope that he leaves abroad, and I hope it's either Bayern Munich or now. I wouldn't have said Real Madrid before Benzema left, but now that Benzema's leaving, it's either one of those two. I really hope it's that. I think the Real Madrid one just makes sense in your mind, doesn't it? He's still wearing white. He's just sliding into that gap that Karim Benzema left. He's of a good age, I think, to deal with, like we said, the pressures of playing for Real Madrid, because he's been in the World Cup stage and in the deep stages of the World Cup a couple of times now as captain of his country. So that's nothing new to him. Man, it just makes sense.
And
really.
You know what?
I would actually love to see Harry Kane at Real Madrid now.
Yeah, and you know what?
Come in, you've got me.
With Real Madrid as opposed to Bayern Munich or even United, because United did get into the Champions League, you're almost guaranteed a Champions League trophy at Real Madrid, or at least like around like semi-finals. You're almost guaranteed, just because it is Real Madrid. Whereas,
yeah, I know, but it's a bit of a myth. Like, you tell that to the players in the 80s and the 90s at Real Madrid, they won't win a Champions League. So it comes and goes, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. In the recent iterations, they've won.
With this iteration of,
they've won 5 over the last 10 years.
Of course, it's crazy. But like you've said, they've had a lot of the same core, a lot of different players as well. But it does make sense.
But the other, since we're still on Real Madrid, apparently Jude Bellingham has done 115 mil. So it would be 2 English players potentially at Real Madrid right now.
That's interesting, because I don't know if Real Madrid will have the money to get Harry Kane if they're doing that.
It's Real Madrid, man. They have the money.
No, I think especially given their stadium developments, I think that's not quite accurate. It's what Real Madrid have always had over everyone else. It's Real Madrid. Like, yes, they've had crazy amounts of money, but it's the reputation that they'll turn players' heads, and then players will want to come.
But the thing is, they're forced to get a number 9 now. So their hand is actually forced to get. So they need to go and get someone. And who else is available in the market? Like, what other number 9 is there? Because Mbappe doesn't want to play as a number 9. He doesn't want to play there.
That is true as well. He has said that. So yeah, no, there is really.
He's the only one that makes sense and is almost a like for like replacement, and the team itself
No.
wouldn't have to change.
He's the best one. There's
Yes,
no
yeah,
doubt about that. If Real Madrid are willing and have the money to do that, then he's the best one. The other one who I'm thinking could be a good one would maybe be Lautaro. I think he'd be a good option as well. He's not of the
maybe.
same
Yeah, it's
stature
not.
of
Nah.
Kane. He's a stopgap. He'll be a useful player in the future. I don't want to see Lautaro negated to that role though, because I do love Lautaro, but he would be a stopgap for them to then go next season for either Kane on a free or Mbappe go back into that market. I think, but that's all speculation. We should probably focus on what's actually happened.
Okay.
And then, all right, let's
Well,
go
there's
back to
been a couple of
managers.
things. Oh, managers, Poch
Oh,
has been confirmed.
it's your turn. It's your turn to
All
pick
right.
one. So
Well, Poch, he's been confirmed. I know he's been confirmed for a couple of weeks now, but we never talked about it. So he's actually.
no, he's been like confirmed, not confirmed. Like the
But
whole
now-
time,
but
it's
now-
like
now he's
is he
actually
100%?
confirmed.
But yeah, I think he is actually confirmed now.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one considering Chelsea have and they've signed another player, some from Portugal, is it?
This one I think went over my head. Then
They
I'll have to
signed
check
they signed
that one
some
out.
defender I think for like 60 mil from Sporting. If I'm not, I think his last name starts with a U, if I'm not mistaken.
Ugarte or
I think so. Yeah,
or-
So they signed him, and Cuckoo's coming in now. So Poch has his hands full, but if there's one thing we know about Poch, he knows how to build a team. Although this isn't his team that he's building, it's Levy's team that he then has to work with. Whereas like he hasn't been asking for these players to come in, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, it's basically a new team that he needs to mold in his vision.
He does, and he's got the pieces. I still
definitely.
think Chelsea, with the talent that Chelsea have, they're definitely a dark horse. Probably the strongest dark horse for the title next season for me. But they've been such a shit show. Why would you think of them in that manner? They finished fucking 12th in the league. Chelsea finished 12th, and they spent like 600 million. What is that all about? That is atrocious. That is truly terrible, but I'm blinded by the talent, man. The talent's so good, and I think a sneaky one, and I think he might fit the Poch mold, and I am interested to see how Poch comes back, because that PSG stint did not look good at all, and I know PSG spits him up and chews him out, as we've seen with Galtier now, and
Yeah.
we might see
another
with
one.
the next manager, depending on who they go. I think reports were Nagelsmann. I don't know if that one's finished, but I think they're closing in on Nagelsmann, which kind of seems like a good fit, given we always talk about Bayern and PSG in the same sentence, it seems. So the challenges will be a little bit similar in that sense. But anyway, on the Poch point, I am interested to see how he comes back, what kind of manager he comes back, because I always believe managers have some sort of scar tissue if they've had an experience like he had at PSG. So it will be interesting to see that. But a sneaky one who I think fits this mold and who could be huge coming back for him is Levi Colwill, who's on loan at Brighton. I hope that all goes well for him, because I think he could be the partner to John Stones in that England team going into the Euros next season. If he can cement a centre back starting position in that Chelsea team, and I think it's there for the taking given Thiago Silva's age and whether he wants to stay, and given Koulibaly's in and outness with injuries, I think he's easily better than Fofana or Chalobah. So he should go back in there and cement a spot for himself. If they can get a season out of Koulibaly playing next to Colwill, who, injuries permitting, I think Koulibaly could have a huge season next season and show why he was one of the best centre-backs in Europe for as long as he was. I think he was having an adaptive period to the Premier League this season, much like maybe Matthias de Ligt was at Bayern. I'm interested to see those two players next season in their second seasons at their clubs. But yeah, Levi Colwill, I've been so impressed with him at Brighton. I think, like I said, I think he could hold a big part or a big key to England's hopes at the Euros. And I really hope that he goes back to Chelsea, Poch can somehow stabilise the team at least, if not the external environment, and get this talented group of players playing well, because they're going to have Christopher and Cuckoo coming in as well. Can he get a tune out of Mudryk, who they paid so much money? But if he does, that's such an exciting team. So, yeah, and again, a lot comes down to Chilwell and Reece James, their injuries. I think we've seen enough where Poch will need to take focus away from those areas, not make them the heartbeat of the team, because these two players just get injured too much. You can't rely on these guys. They're great when you have them, but you've got to find a way where you can live and be dangerous without them. And Chelsea have enough pieces everywhere else that they can do that. So yeah, I think Poch needs to find a way to do that. I'm fascinated to see what happens at Chelsea next season, but yeah, I think there's so many questions and not a lot of answers at the moment. But if we get some answers, they could be some really good answers for Chelsea.
Well, we expected them to still, like, in those matches, like against Real Madrid, for instance, in the Champions League, and then in there's some of those big matches against like City, Arsenal, Man United, and whatnot. Like, we expected them, considering the players that they had, we expected them to at least get up for the big occasion, and they couldn't. And that just shows that it's the manager that gets that gets them up for the big occasion, I believe. So I don't know.
Could be, especially with a group like that who were directionless. I think Potter was at least starting to do things, and I think they would have had a much better chance if Graham Potter was in charge for those ties.
Yeah, true. But
all right,
yeah.
staying on the manager merry-go-round. It's my turn.
All right,
I'm going to stay on the manager merry-go-round. Man, the crazy news that Luciano Spalletti is not going to be Napoli manager next season, and the kind of, well, who lands there? That's a job at the Italian champions. That's a job at the quarterfinalists of the Champions League. That's a job where you have Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen. Probably not Kim Min-jae. He'll probably get snapped up because of that transfer. The release clause, of course. So that will be a huge loss for them if they lose him. But that's still an exciting job because, like I keep saying, I don't think Napoli are going to let go of key players easily. You're going to have to prize them out of De Laurentiis' hands. So they should still have enough talent to be probably the favourites to win Serie A again next season, given maybe the turmoil of some of the other clubs around them. So yeah, I think that's an exciting job, and the one that I think of, I'm interested. You go first. Who do you think of when you think the Napoli job?
Well,
it's an odd one.
I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when I thought, not a couple of months ago, who would be perfect for Napoli, and that would be Klopp.
Yeah, you love the Klopp one. He's not leaving Liverpool though.
Yeah, but if he was to leave Liverpool, like, he would be perfect for Napoli.
That's good. But I think I'm going to stay in the Premier League, but I'm going to think Italian, going back home. I think De Zerbi. That job is just made for De Zerbi. He plays in that sort of style that is still attractive, that is still attacking. And I know Napoli will be very keen to keep that as their identity of this team that Spalletti has built. I think De Zerbi will come in and put some refinements. Now, there is still the question of how he gets them to the next level, given that they'll be back in the Champions League. But that question mark will remain on pretty much any manager that they get in. Maybe Nagelsmann is a good shout for that job, but I think Nagelsmann wants to stay in a bigger market.
I don't think
he wants to stay in a bigger market than Napoli, that's for sure, I think, as well. So De Zerbi's the one who springs to mind. I know a lot of talk has been about Vincenzo Italiano from Fiorentina. Fiorentina had a great season ultimately after a rocky start to the season, but they made 2 cup finals in the Conference League and the Coppa Italia. They lost them both, unfortunately, but every time I watch Fiorentina, I do like what I see. They're an attacking team. It's just a normal 4-3-3, much like what Napoli were playing this season. So he would be another good choice. But the Napoli job is very niche. You're not going to get the superstar managers going there. You're going to get the ones who need to continue this mold to play that way. So if I was to put my front runners for that job, or the ones who I think logically make the most sense, I would rank De Zerbi number one and then Italiano number two. But I think both would be pretty good options, to be fair. But yeah, man, the Spalletti one coming to an end. Apparently, he was not happy that he received an email just saying that Napoli were going to exercise the option to extend his contract without having the sort of the respect of the face-to-face meeting. He wasn't happy with that, and he said, "Fuck this, man! I've got a farm, I think, in the north of Italy, and I just want to take a sabbatical for a year and go and do my farming and whatnot up there." And honestly, who could blame him? It'd be hard to top what he's done this season with Napoli, and apparently got the tattoo and everything. So, yeah, he'll be remembered very fondly by the Napoli faithful.
It's a really weird one, though. You would expect when a manager wins the league, and like he decides to stay and kick on, and the team itself. I don't think the team could be rated. After you lose the figure.
Because the president's still there.
You reckon?
The president's still there. Yeah, De Laurentiis is huge in terms of dealing with transfers.
Yeah, but I just think once you lose the coach, then that can still trigger that the hyenas to come in.
It will be interesting to see how players maybe react to Spalletti not being there. So, yeah, definitely another fascinating one. Have we left any meat on the bone in terms of
managers
off-the-pitch stuff? Just off the pitch in general.
Well, McAllister to Liverpool is confirmed.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. 35 mil I've been hearing as well.
And you've weakened...
5 mil, that's a steal.
And you've weakened a potential... a potential top 4 rival. Like, if they kept on building...
The way Brighton are currently constructed, I agree with that, for sure, with Matoma and McAllister.
Like, they're taking points off teams. Like, they took 3 points off of Arsenal. They took... I don't know if they beat City the first time, but they took 2 points off of City a couple of weeks ago. They're beating the top 6 teams. I think they have a very good record against the top 6 teams as well. So they're a bit of a bogey team for them, and like they finished.
Oh, definitely.
Did they finish just behind you guys in 6th? So they're getting Europa League then, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah. So
but we're getting McAllister.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. No, that's a good one. For 35, I don't know if he'll make the instant difference into that midfield. There's probably another piece that's needed, but he's a good piece to have, that's for sure. And he showed his versatility of his range of being able to play all those midfield positions. Obviously familiar with the Premier League, no problems there. World Cup winner, I mean. For 35 mil, what a steal.
Yeah, I think he's a bit of a... I think he does fit the Klopp type of player as well.
It feels like Liverpool's first really good bit of business for a while.
Yeah.
It does feel a little bit like that.
And then you also had Kante leaving. He's going to be picking up apparently 100 mil a year in Saudi Arabia.
This one blows my mind. This is confirmed?
I believe yesterday, it's like, I think like almost... I'm not sure if it's 100% confirmed. Let me just double check it. But I saw that apparently it was like a news post yesterday.
Well, if this one happens, if it has happened, I'm a little bit disappointed about this.
Poised to seal the move.
So so we'll see. We'll see if it happens. I hope it doesn't, because I think a goal like Kante, much like Benzema, still on his day when he plays.
Well, he's younger than Benzema as well.
Yeah, I know. So on his day when he plays, and if he can just get a season together, man, he's such a difference maker. He's one of the truly elite central midfielders in the world, and I still want to see him on the biggest stage. So I hope that one doesn't go through, but I'm not going to blame him if it does go through to secure his future or whatnot. So, but you can still do that earning $300,000 a week at Chelsea. I will also say.
And also, I think I saw something. Declan Rice apparently agreed personal terms with Arsenal, and I guess now that the final has been played last night, he picked up a cup himself. I think that will probably start to pick up momentum now that he doesn't have any games to play.
Yeah, we'll see, because I know Bayern Munich and Thomas Tuchel are very keen as well.
I don't think he's moving to Germany.
I don't think he is either, but I mean, Bayern are a sure thing. If they can still win the title, even in a season where they're all this shit, they're gonna win the title, whatever. So if he wants to do that, if he wants to go deep in the Champions League, I think more certain than Arsenal. But Arsenal is a different challenge, maybe a more exciting challenge with that young core, and he can be a part of it. And let's be honest, it's a challenge that means he doesn't have to move out of London. So I agree with you. I think Arsenal are the more logical choice or the more likely choice, but I know Bayern are keen. So there is still a watch this space.
I don't know. I saw something last week that or a couple of days ago that the Bayern one, although it was speculated that apparently like Rice like quashed it or it's being quashed, that whole rumor. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't want to get too much into speculation.
But you know what,
we'll
though?
be here forever. There's so much.
You know what though? Even though he's agreed personal terms with Arsenal, he'll be signing for Chelsea next week. It's the whole Modric saga all over again.
And then he becomes a shell of himself.
Yeah.
Oh, man. No, Declan Rice will be very, very highly sought after, no doubt. He fits a need for a lot of clubs.
Yeah. And you know what, though? City could throw their hat in the bag considering Gundogan's leaving.
City, you greedy bastards, don't.
You've
got Rodri, yeah. you got Calvin Phillips, who didn't look that much worse than Declan Rice when they were patrolling England's midfield in the Euros. So don't be greedy, City. Come on. Put your heads in. City need a left back. And here's the perfect segue while we're talking about City. Oh, did we want to touch on the Europa League final? Disgraceful Mourinho behaviour. It's pretty bad, man. It's pretty.
Let's touch on it for a sec.
Jose, why'd you do that, man? Come on, you don't need. He feels hard done by Anthony Taylor. Look, honestly,
well, there was that one penalty shout. But there was that one penalty shout though. I think for Roma. I think was it from a handball or something? And you know what? I think it should have been given.
Seen him given. That's.
I think it should have been given.
This is so like trivial, but you know why I don't think it should be given? Because the cross was so shit. The cross was on a shot. It was going nowhere. That's the only reason I think you shouldn't get a penalty for that. But yeah, Mourinho hated it, and obviously it was ironic to see Mourinho hating the referee's performance when, honestly, I think this was football karma, result. I think
I felt that Roma threw it away. They were all over them in the first half. And then the second half...
Yeah, the first goal was very nice. You could see that was something they clearly worked on. Dybala, such a good player when he plays.
Yeah. But then they sort of just... I don't know whether it was Sevilla changing tactics or just Mourinho going, all right, let's lock in this 1-0 lead and let's go defensive. Because Sevilla were all over them in the second half.
Yeah, they've definitely... I think there's a greater organisation under Mendilibar, and then... I don't know, let's not forget, this Sevilla team nearly finished second in La Liga last season and finished third in La Liga. And I know they lost both their centre-back partnership in Diego Carlos and Jules Koundé. And given that they were a team built on defence, they were huge losses. But they're still not an awful team. Rakitic's resurgence has been great. Navas' resurgence has been really good as well. And what Mendilibar's got this team doing is they're organised and they're running. This team, that's why they got on top of Roma, because Roma couldn't match their intensity. And yeah, to your point, once you get that 1-0 lead, it's very much in Mourinho's nature to absorb pressure and kill the game. And that's why it was ironic that Mourinho's complained to referees about all of that stuff, when I think Roma have consistently been one of the dirtier teams in all of Europe. And I think they deserved what they got in terms of any perceived injustices from the referees.
But then again, they had a VAR decision go for them when Anthony Taylor originally gave a penalty. Yeah, and then he had to look at it and he's like, all right, it's not a penalty. Although he should have. The one thing, if you're not giving penalties, like if you're reversing your decisions, why aren't they getting yellow cards for diving? Like.
Yeah, I don't know. That one.
He wasn't given a yellow card.
Yeah, that one might have still had contact because he just connected with the ball and then got him, and that's why Anthony Taylor thought it was a penalty, but he didn't say the contact with the ball. But no, I get you. You can go back and retroactively give yellow cards, but ultimately we're always asking the question which record was going to go. Sevilla, formidable, obviously in the Europa League, and it went their way. What was that, number 7?
I think so.
7. Did they only start winning it in 06? Was 06 their first or second? It was one of their early ones, so you think they did the three-peat in the middle there? They did another one.
I'll go research it.
Yeah, it might have been their first. It's just crazy to think, and obviously Mourinho's first loss in a European major final, and your dream storyline is ended at the second stage of the ladder, and Mourinho's future is thrown into turmoil because I don't know. It seems like he's putting the feelers out to see what kind of job he could get. Maybe he feels like he could still be the elite. The only job that makes sense somewhat would be PSG, but I think PSG want a new direction now that, well, we did leave a little bit of meat on the bone because Lionel Messi is obviously off to Inter Miami, which we learned very recently, which is great because I didn't want to see him go in and ruin. I am talking about the greatest player of all time, so don't get it twisted. I give him the respect of the greatest player of all time, but I didn't want to see him go and ruin what Barcelona had, and I definitely didn't want to see him. Yeah, and I definitely didn't want to see him ruin what Kylian Mbappe's team should be in the future. And I think I'm going to throw this out in terms of PSG. I don't think Mourinho's the right manager. I think Nagelsmann is if they can get him. But if they can do the German raid and go and get Julian Nagelsmann and then put Kylian Mbappe up front with Randall Koulibaly and Moussa Diaby, I think that's instantly a much more exciting and more balanced team because Randall Koulibaly can run enough for Mbappe, and Moussa Diaby is a live wire on the other side.
What about your midfield? It's the midfield that's the problem. It's been the problem the last 5-6 years.
You need to reinvent different areas, but they've got the money to do it. I think in midfield, my answer would be João Paulinho or someone of that mold. I think João Paulinho is the one who stands out straight away. Let's not forget they're getting Milan Skriniar as one of their centre-backs next season. I know Sergio Ramos is leaving, and ultimately after this season's performance is probably a good thing. Hopefully they have Marquinhos fit and ready back up to his best next season, but yeah, I think PSG have the potential to build a very good team around Kylian Mbappe. So we'll watch this space. Let's see if they have learned some lessons. Let's see. Because you think of it, the two names that I mentioned as well from Germany, they're both French. So it makes perfect sense. It looks like Randall Koulibaly will be the French number 9 going forward. So it makes sense to pair him with Kylian Mbappe. And Moussa Diaby's a player who's not really in the French setup, but I think he's got the talent to be. So yeah, I would love to see that front three, and then, like I said, a João Paulinho behind it. But anyway, I digress from the European finals that we were talking about. I think we finished with the Europa League, and there's just one game
also,
left
just
of the
on
clubs.
that, Sevilla won their first UEFA Cup / Europa League in 05-06.
Yeah, so they've rattled off 7 in that time.
In 18 years or so, yeah.
Jesus Christ. It's crazy. It's just nuts. It is really their competition.
Yeah, that's like almost half of the Europa Leagues in that time frame.
Yeah, they've been insane in that time frame. So yeah, I'm happy I got that one right. But yeah, like I was saying, just one club game left of the season now. It's a reasonably big one for
it's a slightly big one, yeah. Oh, we didn't touch on West Ham.
One team got.
West Ham won the.
Oh yeah, well done, West Ham.
Yeah.
You won the Conference League. I didn't watch the game. I'm sorry.
I saw something like TalkSport mentioned it. West Ham win a major trophy. It's not a major trophy. It's.
I'll give him that.
It's the Carabao Cup of the European competitions. Come on.
It definitely is, but you still call the League Cup also a major trophy. It's still classified as that, and for some clubs, that is what it is. So. I don't want to denigrate.
Yeah, look, congratulations to him and everything, but
that's qualification for the Europa League as well.
Yes,
that's a pretty big deal. That's pretty good for them as well.
That's good for them.
And they had a good run last time. So, yeah. No, well done to West Ham. I didn't watch this game. I probably should
I
have.
didn't.
Because I
Well,
wanted to
they
also
got
watch
a.
Fiorentina.
It finished with a 90th minute
A
winner.
lot. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I did
so
see
I
that.
need to go. I'm gonna. I might just rewind it just to watch the final 5 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, the major trophy, I guess, to your point, will be played on the weekend. And look, honestly, I don't think I've developed any more thoughts on this game than the last time we sort of touched on it in terms of I just think Inter have the potential to be a tough matchup for Manchester City. Inter obviously have been rolling. They've been able to cruise a little bit in recent weeks, much like Manchester City, because of what's happened domestically and them comfortably in the end finishing in the top four. But like we know, Inter are a great cup team. They've won the Super Cup and they've won the Coppa Italia this season. They do have difference makers. They do have a system that is fundamentally sound and shouldn't allow Manchester City too many spaces in the wrong areas. So maybe it's a question of what does Pep Guardiola do with John Stones? Does he want him going into midfield knowing that area of the pitch is going to be completely congested by Inter? They're going to have 6 players in that area at all times when you think of 3 central midfielders and 3 centre-backs. There's always going to be someone there, you'd think. It's going to be hard. Be interested to see how Inter approach it, because if Stones does go and overload the 3 central midfielders, do they want one of the centre-backs pushing out, or do they want those centre-backs always in place so that they can deal with the threat of Erling Haaland, maybe even the threat of Kevin De Bruyne as well? The good thing about it is they have enough numbers in those areas to solve those problems, and ultimately that's why I like a 5-3-2, and ultimately that's why I do really think this matchup is going to be won and lost out wide in Denzel Dumfries up against Jack Grealish, and I guess Akanji/Ake, and Federico DiMarco up against, I guess, Bernardo Silva mostly. I think that's an even matchup in terms of what they can do physically. Obviously, Bernardo Silva could do way more going forward, but Federico DiMarco has been a very good left back, and he'll be in with a shout of making one of the teams of the season this season. And also, who wins the midfield battle? Because Inter have a very, very good midfield, and Nicolo Barella's form in recent weeks has been unreal. He's been fantastic. Popped up with a huge and a really good volley against Atalanta in their win in that game, which pretty much saw them seal up the top 4. They've been winning big games as well, Inter, in recent times, so they shouldn't be afraid of that moment. It is Manchester City. Do you have the fear of Manchester City? You might. But I just want people to shut up about City a little bit. I know they deserve everything that's been said about them, but I really want to see them get beaten in this game. I'm going to be honest.
And
I know that inherently helps Manchester United fans as well, as they keep
their treble record. Yeah. Do you does this sort of remind you of like the Inter Bayern final, where like Bayern were the clear favourites?
Would you say? I wouldn't say.
I think they were. They were like they probably aren't as big favorites as what City are going into, but they were still favorites. Like you look back at what that team was like. They had Robbery as their wingers, and like they were. I think they were on course for the treble as well. They just like both Inter and Bayern were on course for the treble. Obviously, Inter picked it up, but. I'm
pushing back though. Inter were the better side. I don't know. You could say, revisionist history, but
they weren't better than
Bayern. For me, they were. I know Ribéry and Robben they weren't quite peak yet. I think they might have been peak. They might have peaked a couple of years later. The problem for me was a little bit the manager. I know Louis van Gaal is a good manager, but he was past his prime. And at Inter, you had prime Jose Mourinho. This was peak Jose Mourinho. Chelsea, you could argue, was peak, but I think he learned things from Chelsea, and then he took them to Inter, and he was so good with that Inter team. He had Samuel Eto'o playing as a wing-back, man. Samuel Eto'o was still an awesome player at this point, and he had him playing as a wing-back. And let's not forget, maybe a bit of a one-season wonder, but what a one season, and what a goal in the final Diego Milito was unstoppable that season, and for me, why I don't put Bayern as the favourites, you look at their goalkeeper and you look at one of their centre backs. I can't actually remember who they played in goal on that day, but Daniel Van Boyten was never mobile enough to do, and you saw the way that Diego Milito turned him inside out for the goal. So yeah, I'm going to push back because when you look at the other side, and Inter have Julio Cesar and they have Lucio and they have Maicon running up and down the wing and from wing back. Man, that Inter team was unbelievable. Yeah, Lucio, the Brazilian defender, he was there at Inter in 2010. I'm pretty sure he played in that final.
Look it up. That came from Bayern.
Yeah, I think he did. Sure.
Was it?
You've got me questioning it.
Hang on.
Are you looking it up? Yeah, you look it up. I thought that was the only Champions League he won. Unless he was at Bayern in... No, I think he was still at Leverkusen.
Wow, yeah, he did go to Inter. He moved from Bayern to Inter. Wow. Huh.
Yeah, so Bayern were left with that hole that we saw.
He was a very good defender. He was
awesome, man.
He actually used to do what John Stones does now. Like, he used to bring the ball into midfield and from defense and whatnot.
But he was also very hard-nosed. He was a hard-nosed defender.
Oh, yeah.
He was a bit like Thiago Silva before Thiago Silva. It's no surprise that Thiago Silva looks the way he does, but he was in with a shout of, I don't know, I don't think he got into one of my three teams for the last 20 years, but he was a big shout for one of them.
You know what? Looking back at it, he probably should have. Like, he won the World Cup in 2002, and I think...
I know, he was...
Did we
have... Very close.
I think I included the World Cup.
I didn't, the 02 World Cup.
I think I did include 02 because it's exactly 20 years, because it was like at the... well, technically it's at the end of the 01 season. Whatever.
Yeah, I think I did it 04, 05. But anyway, that was a fun exercise. I like that. And speaking of which, do you have much more on this game? I think I laid...
Well, not really. Like, I think a couple
obviously
of weeks ago...
Obviously, we got the storylines as well.
I think a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that... You've mentioned that it's the midfield and the defense that might have to block John Stones, but I reckon it will be Lautaro that's going to do it, because they play with that dual striker, with two strikers up front. I think it will be Lautaro that monitors and tracks his John Stones.
He is great at doing his defensive duties as a striker, Lautaro.
And if he does it off his shoulder as well, like from his blind side,
that's. But the problem that Manchester City give you is the John Stones is allowed to go forward because Kyle Walker's just going to be there.
Yeah,
and I don't like the matchup, especially on the halfway line of Lautaro against Kyle Walker. What's he?
It's not going to be Lautaro. I reckon Lautaro is going to be the one tracking back into midfield and with John Stones.
And that's the question. How does Pep want to use John Stones? Because we have seen in some games as well. And I think this is the prime game for him to do it. He just uses John Stones as an actual centre-back. He doesn't really do that midfield thing with him in some games. I remember Leicester at home, which was a big game for them to win, I think, to go back top. He just played as an out-and-out centre-back. So I think it was another Champions League game as well. It might have been Real Madrid. But anyway, I digress. So that is the conundrum. That's where Pep's joker in the pack is, because we've seen John Stones push up so far that he's playing as a number 10 sometimes. So will Inter allow him to do that? Because you're not going to want Lautaro tracking him all that way. No. You're going to want to trust your midfielders there.
Yeah. He'll probably just track him just past the center circle.
Into the 6.
Yeah, and then he transfers him over to one of the midfielders.
So that's going to be interesting if Inter start with Brozovic, because then I think Brozovic is the perfect player who can jump out of that midfield line and go and press and maybe force an error on John Stones. He's the one who screams to me who could do that.
I think he holds the record for the most kilometers run in a World Cup, like in a World Cup match.
He's a nutter. Yeah. He runs so much. He's crazy.
It's insane, man.
And he looks like he's on like ice or something. Some real. I was gonna say that.
I was gonna say that. Like he looks like you just picked him up off the street and like, okay, go run around. And he's like, all right, I'll get all my energy out, because he's all like.
But then
He's all like tatted up and everything, and he's like
Yeah,
super skinny because he's super fit, and and he's like really hard nosed as well.
yeah. And but like we're burying the lead because he's an unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
He's so good with the ball.
like
So
here's the thing though, like how important he is or how great of a player he is. Dalic, the Croatian coach, he affords to leave Modric out of teams, but he always plays Brozovic. Like that's how important he is.
well, I hope Inzaghi reads from that same book because I really want to see him in the final. I think I know he likes the Mkhitaryan, Çalhanoğlu, Barella midfield. I hope he doesn't go with that. I think Brozovic is more suited for this, and plus I just prefer watching Brozovic more anyway. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup if Brozovic does play because I imagine it'll be Gundogan who Guardiola tasks with. Can you stop him getting on the ball as much as he normally does? There's good matchups in this game, and I'm happy that this is the last game of the season. I think it should be a fascinating one, if not maybe the most entertaining one. But yeah, there's no doubt Manchester City are deserved favourites going into this, but I don't think Inter will have an inferiority complex. So I'm looking forward to this match.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I reckon, like just at least on paper, it just seems like Inter at least have everything to counter City. Like for instance, you know how like they analyze boxing matches and like, oh, this guy's an inside fighter, this guy's an outside fighter, this guy's a brawler and whatnot, and then they analyze it. They're like, well, this style generally defeats, sort of like a rock paper scissors. Like this style generally is more superior to that style. It's more. It's probably more pronounced in MMA. Like you have like jiu-jitsu guys, wrestling guys, and so on and so forth. And then you have like kickboxing versus Muay Thai and all that, and karate and stuff. So at least on paper, Inter do seem like the way they set up their formation and the players they have in those formations and positions. It seems like it should counter what City want to do. And we haven't seen Inter versus City like at least we haven't. I can't remember that I've ever seen it like in the group stages of the Champions League or anything. Definitely not. So like
nothing springs to my mind.
Yeah, so we haven't seen this. Whereas like we've seen City versus Real last year and this year. We've seen like City versus Liverpool multiple times. So if we saw them in the final last year, then like we sort of knew what we would see. So yeah, it's definitely. I think it's more exciting because we haven't seen it either. So we want to see whether the stuff on paper actually plays out.
Yeah, good point. And then the storylines of treble, double for each of these teams online. So yeah, but I'm happy with that. I don't have anything to add. Nev, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered most of it. The one thing that did pop into my mind right now, I know we'll touch on it next week. The UEFA Nations League semi-finals are next week. I just realised, but I just realised Brozovic isn't actually with the Croatian team at the moment, so I don't know if he'll play.
Oh yeah, of course.
So unless he's organised with Dalic to join them like on the Monday, but they play on Wednesday, so at least he'll be like fresh. Like it's not like he's taking like 2-3 weeks off and then he's just joining in. Whereas like a lot of these players, they finished the league 2 weeks ago, so he'll be match fit, I guess. I don't know what's happening there, but yeah, that really sucks. That really sucks if he isn't going to be playing in the semi-final against Netherlands.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I'm sure we'll touch on it.
Yeah, we'll touch on it once next week after the Champions League.
And also be on notice. Start doing your 3 teams because we're going to do that soon.
Yeah, we'll do it. Do it after. We won't do it next pod. We'll probably do it the one after. Yeah,
we'll dedicate a whole pod to it. We'll
try to knock all 3 out in the one pod.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, just be on notice. But cool. For anyone who was listening to us for an hour and a half, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm still in your accent, Nev, and thanks for listening, guys, and bye for now and see you later, or whatever that says.
That's not my exit. We'll leave on that one.
That's mine then.
It's yours. You can take it. You can take that piece of shit.
See you guys.